It's strange, being aware of yourself while rotting from the inside out. I can feel the cold in my joints as I walk, even if my nerves don't scream like they used to. The air brushes across what's left of my skin, but I don't shiver. There's no heartbeat anymore, no sweat, just movement, slow, deliberate. Every step forward is one I choose. Not because instinct drives me, but because I remember where I'm going. The others around me don't remember anything. Not names, not faces, not pain. They walk because hunger steers them. Hunger like a compass buried in their skulls. But I remember. I remember the labs in Nevada. I remember my own voice echoing in the decon chamber. I remember the wrong batch getting loaded, the alarms, the lights flickering before the silence fell. I remember screaming when the doors locked from the outside. Then the virus got inside. And then I got out. That was 11 months ago. Now I walk at the front of something much larger. The wind kicks up ash and grit as we move through the dry fields west of the Del Rio checkpoint. There's a scent in the air, burned plastic, diesel, cooked metal. It leads us to another perimeter, another fence, another illusion of safety built by people who still think their rules matter. From where I stand, half buried in the waist-high brush, I can see them. Survivors. 24 by the last count. 8 on rotation. 2 on the roof with hunting scopes. I don't approach close enough for them to raise suspicion. Not yet. I don't drag my limbs like the others. I crouch. I wait. I let the mass of bodies move on instinct while I scan the cracks in their pattern. A short wall of shipping containers welded end to end. Chain link on top. Solar lights running along the inside. Too clean. Too organized. Someone with engineering skill helped set this up. That just makes it more satisfying when it fails. A dry twig snaps behind me. It's not a horde sound. It's too precise. A pause. A shift in weight. I turn my head slowly, just enough to glimpse the woman through the dust haze. She's maybe 50 feet behind, crouched near a fallen tree. Backpack tight against her frame. Black jacket. Face painted with ash, trying to blend in. She's got a crossbow. Not military. Civilian grade, but good enough to open my skull if she realizes what I am. I freeze. Let my arms hang dead. Tilt my head just enough to sell the illusion. To her, I'm another straggler, not worthy of a shot. The living always assume they're smarter than the dead. I wait longer than she does. She lowers the bow, adjusts her bag, and moves around the edge of the field toward the ridge, south of the settlement. I store her direction in memory. She'll be useful. I rise and walk. The others around me groan softly, twitching as I pass. It's not language, not exactly, but there's something in how they respond to me. Some subconscious recognition that I am wrong. Not prey, not quite kin, but part of them. By dusk, we are close enough to test the walls. The first infected stumbles into the clearing by accident, drawn by the heat bleeding off the concrete foundation. He lurches too close to the light and gets a crossbow bolt straight through the eye. The rooftop shooter smiles. Another one joins. A few more. Soon, 10 of them stagger out of the trees like sleepwalkers toward the outer fence. The guards laugh. Someone inside calls them dumb walkers. They cheer each kill like it's target practice. I don't smile, but I want to, because it isn't the 10 they should worry about. It's the 72 I've been walking with for the last 5 miles, just out of sight. At nightfall, I ease back from the tree line and descend the gully where the rest wait. It's always the same at first. Twitches, snarls, jaws snapping at the air. But the closer I move, the quieter they get. I don't speak. I just raise my arm. They still. When I turn and lead them forward, they follow. Not because of noise or scent, but because something deeper in the virus connects us now. Something the scientists never understood. We rise over the ridge like a silent tide. The camp doesn't notice until the first outer barricade creaks under weight. That sound, the brittle metallic pop of a weld giving way, is louder than any scream. 2 guards on the west wall shout, flashlights blink on, sirens follow. The klaxon cuts through the night, but the moment it rings, the horde surges. And I don't stop them. I stand behind. I count seconds. I watch the pattern of the floodlight rotations. I measure how long it takes for the front gates to be reinforced. I listen for radio chatter, west perimeter breached, and track the voices of command. One male, one female. They're calm, trained. They've done this before. But not against me. Not against something that thinks. When the gate finally collapses under the pressure of bodies, bent metal, torn hinges, splinters of aluminum guardrails, I don't follow the horde in. I move around the side. I move slow, steady, keeping to the shadows where the floodlights haven't reached, and I find the woman again, the one from the field. She's inside. She made it in before nightfall, and now she's crouched near a stacked pallet of water drums. Her crossbow is drawn, aimed at the rear fence. Her eyes track the noise, but not me. I'm behind her. She doesn't know yet, but I don't raise my hand. Not yet, because she's not one of them. The way she breathes through her mouth, careful and measured. The way her fingers rest loosely on the trigger instead of white-knuckled. She's been out there. She's learned the silence. She doesn't belong inside these walls. She's only here for something, or someone, and I want to know who. The others pour in through the broken gate. Screams echo off metal. Flashlights whip in every direction. The guards are firing now. Bullets tear through flesh, but it never matters. Not enough. The living think if they aim for the chest, it'll stop something that no longer breathes. It doesn't. I move behind her, and she finally hears it. The faint scrape of bone on asphalt. She spins, and I freeze again, hunched low, mouth slack, eyes cloudy. She hesitates. The bolt is half loosed. Her hand twitches. I don't blink. She exhales through her teeth and lowers it. Not completely, but enough. She doesn't want to waste the shot unless she's sure. Good, she'll need it later. Behind us, the chaos swells. The commander's voice breaks through the comm speaker bolted to one of the guard towers. Fall back to the comm shack. Repeat. Southwest quadrant compromised. The metal of the loudspeaker hums slightly as it crackles out those clipped words, followed by the stuttering boom of a short-circuited relay and a burst of static. The woman doesn't flinch. She doesn't even glance back. Her focus is already forward, scanning the courtyard with movements too controlled for someone caught in the middle of a surprise attack. She's been in this situation before, or close enough to recognize the rhythm of collapse. She tightens the strap on her crossbow and moves with purpose toward the back of the camp. I don't follow immediately. The other infected, the ones bound to instinct, are doing their part. They flood in through the main breach in a storm of bone, rot, and weight. No strategy, just hunger and force. It doesn't need to be smart when it's relentless. Flesh makes the best ram. The guards near the northern end of the wall are panicking, their shots wild and scattered, bullets chewing through the dark without any real effect. Somewhere behind the central compound, a propane tank explodes, not from sabotage, but from carelessness. Someone fired blindly near a fuel drum. The concussive blast sends heat rolling across the yard like a second wave. Screams follow, sharp and overlapping, and those are real. That's fear spreading. I stay near the fringe of the interior wall, moving low through the shadows of a storage shed whose doors have been kicked open in the confusion. Inside are crates of freeze-dried rations, some already scattered, footprints and drag marks smeared across the dusty concrete. The woman isn't here for food. She's after something else. Someone else. She moves like someone on a timer. Past the storage yard, I spot her again. She's not alone anymore. She's reached a long, narrow structure that looks like a converted shipping container with reinforced walls and a single side door. No windows. The kind of place built to hide things. She raps twice on the metal, soft but distinct, waits a beat, then knocks once more. A beat passes. The door unlatches from the inside. A boy appears first. He's maybe 10 or 11, too young to be carrying the kind of fatigue in his eyes. His hands grip the doorframe, and he peeks out before pulling the woman inside. The door closes behind them, and the latch clicks again. A few seconds later, the internal light goes dim, concealed by a makeshift blackout curtain on the inside. I pause behind a pile of broken crates, watching from a crack between stacked barrels. The infected are still swarming the courtyard, pushing deeper into the central camp. The guards have pulled back to their fallback positions, close to the tower and the broadcast hut. There won't be a coordinated defense. Not anymore. From where I'm crouched, I can just make out movement inside the container. The woman's shadow is pacing, fast and focused. The boy gestures toward a far wall. There's another figure seated or slumped, an adult, judging by the size. She kneels next to him, checks his leg. There's a thick wrap just below the knee, stained dark. Not bitten. The wrap is too uniform. A gunshot wound, probably recent. She helps him sit up, braces his weight with her shoulder. He's still conscious, muttering something I can't hear. Then another figure moves into view, standing beside the boy. Older girl, 13, maybe 14. She carries a backpack that's far too heavy for her frame, but she's used to it. These aren't random civilians. They're a unit, a small one, but practiced. The woman pulls a folded map from her jacket, unfolds it against the metal wall, and starts pointing. Her mouth moves quickly. I don't need to hear the words. I can see the posture. She's not asking for permission. She's giving instruction. The girl nods. The boy adjusts the bag on his shoulders. The injured man grips the edge of the table, pulling himself up with a grunt that's muffled by the metal walls. Their routine is clear. They've prepared for this. Not just escape, but escape during chaos. She didn't come here to settle in. She came here because it was a place to hide until the real exit opened. The rear window of the container pushes outward with a soft squeal, and a metal rod props it open. One by one, the kids climb out first, dropping quietly to the gravel behind the structure. The woman moves with them, the man half limping, half hopping as she supports his weight. She doesn't speak, but she looks everywhere, behind, ahead, upward toward the tower, then toward the breach at the outer fence. She's not expecting the infected to be smart, just overwhelming. And she's mostly right. I stay in the dark as they move south through the supply yard, ducking behind rusted tractors and broken farm equipment that had been repurposed as barricades. She moves like she's memorized the layout. No hesitation, no second guessing. I know her type. Former logistics maybe, FEMA adjacent, or she did private evac work during the early collapse. It doesn't matter anymore. Titles don't survive fire and teeth. But habits do. That's what makes her valuable. They reach the fence line at the far end of the compound. It's been patched with welded wire, less sturdy than the original steel frame. There's a section near the corner where the fence has been clipped and re-looped with cable ties. It's a field exit, meant to look secure, but easy to tear open in a rush. She cuts the ties with a multi-tool. The kids slip through. The man groans as he's helped out next. Then she follows, replacing the loop to hide the tampering. She still hasn't seen me. That's good. I want to know how she reacts to threat, not paranoia. I move parallel through the ruined corridor of the former livestock holding pen, keeping her in sight while staying out of the dying arc of the floodlights. They've reached the edge of the tree line now, past the outer wall. There's no real forest here, just low scrub and scattered juniper across sloped terrain. The moonlight's enough to follow. They disappear briefly behind a series of washed-out irrigation ditches, then emerge at a concrete runoff culvert, dry and echoing. She waves the kids down into the tunnel, lowers the injured man last, then climbs down herself. I count to 20, then I follow. The culvert is narrow, but walkable. Dry gravel crunches beneath my steps as I ease through the opening, careful not to make noise. It's cooler here, even in summer. The man is seated near the far end of the tunnel, back against the wall, face pale. He's fading fast. The girl sits beside him, one hand clutching his arm. The boy stands watch near the exit, holding a small flashlight low to the ground, barely on. The woman's closer to the front, peering out across the low field. Her crossbow's loaded again, angled downward but ready. She's not letting her guard drop. But she also hasn't called for help. No radio clicks, no flares. She either doesn't trust the others in the camp or knows no one's coming. I shift my weight just slightly to move forward, and a rock dislodges underfoot. The sound is tiny, but enough. She spins around, weapon aimed. I freeze. Not stiff like a threat, just motionless, slack-jawed, the way they expect. Her eyes narrow. She hesitates, which is a mistake, but not fatal. Not tonight. I let her see me. Let her think she has the upper hand. The weapon doesn't lower, but she doesn't shoot. I don't groan. I don't lunge. I just wait. That's what throws her. A faint noise echoes behind us. Distant, but moving. Another part of the horde is heading this way, not on command, just drifting toward movement. They won't follow me. Not directly, not here. But it's enough to push her toward a decision. She whispers something to the boy. He nods, disappears down the ditch toward the trees. The girl follows with the man, slow and awkward, but moving. The woman keeps her crossbow trained on me until they're clear. Then she backs away, never turning her back, until she too vanishes down the slope. I don't follow. I stay in the culvert until the sound of the shambling horde passes overhead. They're louder than they should be, stumbling and dragging limbs through the brush. They won't catch the group tonight. Not yet, but they'll press them, hard. The dead don't hunt like wolves. There's no coordination in the swarm, no true pursuit, just a kind of terrible gravity that pulls them towards sound and scent and warmth. But even gravity has a rhythm. A smart enough person can learn it. The woman knows that much. She didn't break into a sprint or collapse in fear when she saw me. She's worked around the infected long enough to understand what triggers them, and maybe more importantly, what doesn't. I climb out of the culvert a few minutes after the last groan fades into the distance. The air up here is still dry but cooler now, carrying the scent of ash and disturbed soil. The firefight in the camp has quieted. A few isolated gunshots echo faintly from behind the ridgeline, then nothing. That place is finished. What was once a checkpoint with decent structure and a perimeter now lies in ruin. The bones of false security cracked under the weight of too much hope and not enough realism. I never had to shout or lead the others directly. The virus inside us does the herding. It wants to be near itself. It recognizes the warmth of the uninfected. The smarter ones like me, what little of us there are, don't need to do much. Just walk ahead, slow and deliberate, and the others will follow. I move in the opposite direction of the herd, not because I'm avoiding them, but because the group I watched escape has something worth learning. Survivors who adapt are rare. Survivors who teach others to do the same. Those are dangerous. I don't need the children. I don't even need the wounded man. It's her I want to understand. The moon is still high when I crest the hill overlooking the irrigation field. What used to be green farmland is now nothing but bone-dry trenches and cracked soil, the old pivot irrigation lines twisted and leaning like skeletal remains. They move across the terrain in single file, slow and steady. The boy leads now, flashlight off, walking along the edge of the deepest channel. He's trying to stay beneath the skyline. Smart. The girl follows close behind, keeping an eye on the man they're helping forward. He's limping worse now. Even from a distance, I can tell the leg won't hold up much longer. He's probably sweating through his clothes. The adrenaline from the camp's collapse will have burned out by now, leaving only pain and the creeping edge of exhaustion. The woman brings up the rear, constantly checking over her shoulder. She senses pursuit, not because she hears me, but because her instincts are good. That's rare. Most survivors are still clinging to what the world used to be. She's living in what it is now. I stay far enough back to be nothing but another shadow in the uneven terrain. She never sees me directly, though I catch her slowing once or twice, glancing toward the ridge with narrowed eyes. She's trying to convince herself it's just paranoia. By dawn, they've found shelter, a farmhouse, burned out, long abandoned, but with enough structure to make use of. The upper story is mostly collapsed, but the brick base still stands. There's a dry root cellar dug behind it, concealed under what used to be a chicken coop. She sends the children in first, then lowers the wounded man down with effort. She goes in last, dragging the door shut behind her, with a piece of wire twisted around a fence post. Not perfect, but good enough to keep out the less persistent. I don't follow. I circle the property, scanning for signs of past use. There's no fresh blood, no buried bones. The place has been picked over, but not recently. It's quiet. And more importantly, it's defensible for a few hours. I find a spot among the nearby boulders, beneath a twisted oak that's lost most of its leaves. I crouch and wait. It isn't like sleep. I don't rest anymore. Not like I used to. There's no dreamless float or sudden jolt awake. Just stillness. Alert. Always listening. The brain stays active even if the body doesn't. That's part of what makes me different. The others rot and stumble, I watch. I choose. A storm rolls in around mid-morning. Just wind and dust at first, pushing across the fields from the south. Later, ash follows. Not fresh, just remnants from the burns the survivors used to set around the quarantine zones. They thought fire would solve it. Thought the virus couldn't cross scorched land. But it always does. It waits. It walks. It gets in through a cut or a cough or a door that didn't latch fully. By midday, the woman emerges, alone. She moves toward the corner of the barn, keeping low, checking the sightlines before stepping into the open. She's cautious but not afraid. She's hunting for supplies or reconnoitering the terrain. Probably both. Her hands move fast, searching the remains of a tool locker near the rusted troughs. She doesn't notice me yet. I move out of the shadow just enough for my silhouette to stretch onto the edge of the barn's exterior wall. She sees it, pauses, doesn't draw the crossbow this time, just watches. I don't move. She speaks first, low and sharp. I know you're not one of them. She's not wrong, but she's not entirely right either. She steps forward, slowly, weapon half raised. What are you? I stay still. Let her speak. I'm curious how much she's guessed. Her eyes narrow. She's not talking to someone she trusts. She's talking to a variable, a new threat that doesn't fit her framework. Her voice doesn't shake though. It stays grounded even. You led them to the fence, then you walked away. Why? I tilt my head slightly. Not mimicry, just emphasis. She doesn't get closer, but she doesn't retreat either. That's something. Most run, most scream. She does neither. I don't care what happened to you, she says finally. I've got 2 kids, and a man who won't survive another mile without antibiotics. If you wanted us dead, we'd be dead already. I don't answer. Not because I can't, but because silence tells her more. She stares for another moment, then steps back and moves around the corner, disappearing into the cellar again. No threats, no begging, just a cold understanding that whatever I am, I'm not simple. That night, I hear voices drifting up from the cellar. The kids are whispering. The man is coughing, his breath ragged. Infection setting in, probably septic. He won't last long. The boy keeps asking questions. Wants to know who I am, why I didn't attack, if I'll come back. The girl tells him to shut up. She doesn't trust it. She says I'm just waiting. That's closer to the truth than she realizes. The truth is, I don't want him dead. Not yet. Watching the 3 of them move around him, support him, carry him when he falters, it teaches me more than tearing into his throat ever would. Hunger is a constant, but hunger isn't always the point. It's what comes after that matters. They sleep in shifts through the night, curled in the lowest corner of the cellar. No fire, no light, just the soft sounds of shifting blankets and the wet rasp of the man's lungs. The boy hums quietly to himself. It's a tune I almost recognize. Something old, something pre-outbreak. It hits a memory, but the details are blurred. I don't know if I heard it in a grocery store or in a lab or on a car radio while the world was still pretending to function. It doesn't matter. The sound is soft, human, imperfect. At sunrise, the woman emerges again. She doesn't bring the weapon this time. Just a ragged canteen and a battered map, unfolded carefully against the collapsed siding of the barn. She traces a line southward with her finger, stopping at a place marked with a red X. I can't see the label from here, but she stares at it for a long time before folding the paper again and tucking it into her jacket. She doesn't look around, doesn't scan the tree line. She knows I'm nearby. They leave just after dawn. The man can't walk on his own anymore. His face is pale, jaw locked in pain. The girl and the woman loop his arms over their shoulders, and they carry him as best they can across the brittle terrain. The boy follows behind, dragging the bags now lightened of water and food. I can tell from the way they move that they have maybe a day of supplies left. 2 if they ration hard. But the woman has no intention of rationing. She's moving with urgency now, the kind that comes from a deadline. They travel along the old utility road that cuts through the ridgeline. It's half eroded, with deep cracks filled in by dry weeds and bits of charred plastic. The remnants of a burnt convoy still smolder a mile to the east. Truck stripped to the frame, tires melted down into black puddles of rubber. The dead passed through there a few days ago. Maybe 4, maybe 5. I remember the Horde's weight shifting that direction after we left the mining town. The infected don't choose paths. They follow pressure, like water through low ground. The group keeps moving. By midday, the heat climbs hard. The man slips in and out of awareness. His words stop making sense. Sometimes he whispers names that don't belong to anyone with them. The girl walks faster when he does. The woman slows. Not out of exhaustion, but caution. She knows what a fever can do to a mind, and what comes after. They break at the base of a hollowed-out water tank near the edge of an abandoned crop-dusting field. It's open land, poor cover, but the only available shade. The woman sets the man down gently, then rummages through one of the packs, pulling out a plastic pill bottle. Empty. She shakes it anyway, listens to the absence, and places it back. The boy wanders a few paces off, kicks the dirt, finds something half buried. It's a broken drone, snapped in half, commercial grade. Maybe once used for scouting supply routes or mapping fire lines. Now it's just carbon fiber and glass scattered across dry earth. He doesn't call attention to it. He just kneels, picks it apart, curious but quiet. That's the way kids grow now. Not loud, not reckless, just shaped by everything that came before them. The woman unwraps the bandage on the man's leg. The wounds turn black along the edges. There's nothing she can do for it. She stares at it for a long time. Not shocked, not even angry, just resigned. The way someone looks when they've been carrying the weight of too many bad decisions, and this is just one more. They don't talk much during the break. When they move again, it's slower. The girl takes the boy's bag to lighten his steps, and the woman carries most of the man's weight alone now. He can't even hold on properly anymore. His arms drag, his head lolls forward. It won't be long. They make it 3 more miles before she stops. It's a shallow depression near an old irrigation channel, half filled with collapsed fencing and thorn brush. She lowers the man there, rests his head on a patch of dusty grass. The girl watches silently. The boy fidgets with a loose strap on his jacket, biting the inside of his cheek. The woman crouches beside him and pulls a small vial from her pocket. A tranquilizer, military issue. You don't find that in abandoned pharmacies. She carried this with her from somewhere deeper in the outbreak. Somewhere earlier. She presses it into the man's arm. He flinches, then exhales. His chest rises and falls slower now. She stays with him until he stops breathing. Then she leans back, closes his eyes with her fingertips, and nods once to the kids. They don't cry. The boy looks down at the dirt, then helps her lift the body into the ditch. They cover it with loose branches and old tarps. Not a proper burial, but it keeps the scent low, keeps the scavengers off for a while. The girl doesn't speak, she just looks away. I watch from the hill, not because I care, but because I remember when that kind of silence mattered. They sleep that night in an old trailer tipped on its side, the windows smashed and the interior covered in soot. It was likely part of a work crew at some point, years ago. Still has a cot inside, barely intact. The woman sleeps with her hand on the crossbow. The girl sleeps against the door. The boy curls up next to the empty water jug, like it's something familiar. The next morning, they head west instead of south. The woman's changed her plan, probably calculated the distance against what's left of their energy. She doesn't know what's ahead, but she knows they can't make the original mark on the map. She's improvising now. That's dangerous. Not because she's wrong, but because improvising makes noise. And the dead follow noise. They pass through the edge of what used to be a roadside motel. 2 buildings, both collapsed. The girl finds a can of peaches with a dented lid. They share it without speaking. The juice is gone in seconds. Then the tin gets tossed into a pile of rusted hardware near the lobby entrance. The boy keeps watching the trees. Every shadow looks bigger than it should. Every breeze makes him jump. His hands stay clenched. Not scared. Just tired of waiting for the next thing to go wrong. They haven't seen me yet. Not directly, but I know they sense it. I leave just enough trace to keep the pressure on. A print in the dirt, a shift in the brush, a reflection in glass that disappears when they look twice. The boy notices first but doesn't speak of it. He looks back more often than before, walking slower. He checks the same ridge twice, not just in fear, but in understanding. The girl tries to pull him forward, impatient, keeping him close with sharp glances and terse movements. She still doesn't trust what she doesn't understand. The woman knows better. She keeps walking, never breaks stride, but her hand never strays far from the strap across her chest. Every so often, she tightens it with a small tug, mechanical, unconscious, preparing herself. I've seen enough now to confirm what I already suspected. She's dangerous, not because she's cruel, or unstable, or unpredictable. She's dangerous because she is consistent. She doesn't waste energy. She doesn't panic. She doesn't cling to people who can't survive. When the injured man couldn't walk, she didn't hesitate. She ended it quickly, mercifully, and with the full knowledge of the children beside her. She didn't shield them from it. She made them part of it. That's a rare instinct. She teaches through exposure, doesn't apologize, doesn't over-explain. She's the kind of person who could rebuild something, if there were anything left to rebuild. And that's the problem. People like her don't fall into the traps we set. She wouldn't die in a random breach, wouldn't be picked off at a fence post or lured into a dead-end corridor by the groans of the newly turned. She'd pull her people back, reassess, redirect. If there's one thing worse than the weak clinging to false walls, it's the ones who walk without needing them. So I let them go. For now. They head west across the lower basin, skirting the edge of what used to be a warehouse district. Their pace slows. Water's almost gone, and the boy's left ankle is starting to swell. He twisted it climbing a concrete divider 2 nights ago, but never said anything. The woman saw it anyway. She adjusts her stride so he can keep up without noticing. The girl doesn't speak much anymore. She's retreated into herself, conserving effort. They vanish from my line of sight by late morning. I don't follow. I've seen enough. Now it's my turn to move. The trail back through the basin is littered with old fences and scorched debris. Fires burned through here sometime during the 2nd month, judging by the pattern of soot and the blackened frame of a rusted-out pickup with melted side mirrors. It was a defensive burn, not a wildfire. Human effort, probably useless. The dead don't fear fire, not like people do. They don't withdraw from heat. They just collapse and get back up slower. If the nerves are gone, there's nothing to stop the march. The early governments didn't understand that. They thought the threat could be managed with containment protocols and controlled burns. Now the burned zones are just landmarks, places where the air always smells faintly of plastic and ash. I don't feel fatigue in the same way anymore, but I remember it. I can still sense the pattern of movement in my body. I walk for hours across uneven terrain, slow but efficient, conserving what doesn't need conserving. By late afternoon, I reach the place I was looking for, a scatter of rooftops visible through the low trees, nestled behind a long stretch of overgrown freeway. Suburbia, still mostly intact. 3 rows of houses along a looping cul-de-sac, most of them boarded up. One still has power, judging by the faint glint of solar panels on the 2nd-floor balcony. That one's occupied. Probably 2 families inside, maybe more. There's a children's play structure in the back, worn but upright. A bike leaning against the fence. They think they're safe here. I watch them for 2 full days. They have a watch rotation, but it's soft, complacent. One man patrols the perimeter with a revolver at dusk, but his flashlight is dim, and he doesn't scan properly. The windows are all reinforced, but the front gates are loose, chain-linked around 2 garden posts and secured with nothing more than a padlock and a loop of nylon cord. A few of the kids play during the day. I count 4, 2 under 10, 1 teen, and another maybe 6 or 7. The adults stay inside mostly. Occasionally, someone checks the garden beds. Beans, squash, tomatoes growing in cracked plastic buckets. It's quiet here, calm. I imagine someone once calling this place a sanctuary. That ends tonight. I double back through the brush, keeping low to avoid the sightlines from the upper windows. There's an old community recycling center just down the road, half buried in vines and surrounded by a sunken lot. I know the scent there. It's where the forgotten go, the aimless infected, the ones who didn't follow the Horde into the city center. Dozens of them now, maybe more, sleeping in the broken piles of plastic crates and half-crushed vending machines, wandering through the dust with no direction. They stand in loose clusters like weeds that grew through the pavement cracks. They don't notice me until I'm close, but when I walk into them, they stop. Not immediately, just gradually. One lifts his head, the next follows. They don't growl, they don't rush. They just turn toward me, faces slack, the virus humming between us like a wire pulled tight. I walk, and they follow. We move at night. There's no moon, just the flicker of a broken streetlight powered by a failing battery pack. The light stutters as we pass, casting warped shadows across the crumbling sidewalk. The cul-de-sac ahead glows faintly from the house with power. Someone inside is watching television, or maybe an old movie on a battery-powered projector. I hear faint sound through the open window. Laughter, human, distant. I walk to the edge of the neighborhood and stop. The others line up behind me, waiting. I don't speak, but I lift my hand. The first one lurches forward, not fast, just persistent. Then the next. Then a dozen. Then the full weight of the forgotten shambles forward. The cul-de-sac wakes slowly. A dog barks. One of the small ones with too much energy and no discipline. Then, someone yells. Then the lights inside the house flicker off. They move too late. The padlock on the garden gate holds for 30 seconds before the metal warps and breaks. The chain snaps under pressure. The infected pour through like a flood. The first screams are short, panicked, then muffled. One of the teenagers tries to climb the fence and slips. He's dragged down before he can cry out again. A woman rushes out with a broom of all things, swinging wildly before being pulled beneath the tangle of limbs. I don't join the initial breach. I wait at the edge, watching. I'm not here for meat. I'm here for momentum. The virus isn't a plague anymore. It's not an accident. It's something bigger now. A current, an order, a new kind of direction for the things that remain. When the house finally goes still, I step inside. Only one man is left. He's crouched in the corner, eyes wide, hands shaking around the grip of a revolver with no rounds left. He pulls the trigger anyway, clicks echo through the room. I kneel, look at him, and he knows. He doesn't beg. He just closes his eyes. When I leave, the house is silent. The infected don't linger. They scatter, drawn to sound, to scent, to instinct. But I hold a few back. 3 of them, young, still partially intact. They watch me as I move, heads tilted, hands twitching with uncertainty. They're waiting for a signal, even if they don't understand it. I don't need to give them one. My presence is enough. I move, and they follow. I lead them out of the cul-de-sac, through the broken fencing, across the outskirts of the freeway. Others see us on the way, wanderers, loners, some shambling from behind rusted sheds, others emerging from drainage pipes or half-collapsed houses. A few are nothing but husks of people, pieces barely held together. But they follow too. They always do. By the second night, the 3 have become 20. By the 4th, we are over 40, strung out across a half-mile, growing larger with every hour. Every town we pass adds more to the column. Not fast, not loud, just a quiet accumulation of inevitability. I'm no longer a shadow in the trees. I'm the thing pressing behind them. I find her trail again after a week. Not because I was searching, but because she wanted to be found. She left signs, not careless ones, not the kind a rookie survivor would miss. These were deliberate. Small notches in bark. Wires run low across game trails. One ridge had a mirror angled against a sun-bleached boulder, reflecting glare into the eyes of anything approaching from the southeast. She's built a perimeter, a layered one. She's smart, but not smart enough. The old sawmill is tucked into a narrow valley 2 ridges north of the dead highway. You wouldn't notice it from the road unless you were looking for it. The main building still stands, a long rectangle of aluminum siding and rotting timber, surrounded by 3 smaller structures, 2 equipment sheds and a half-collapsed office. The overgrown tree line has crept right up to the buildings, and the fence around the property is rusted and gapped in 3 places. But from a distance, it looks solid, safe. There's movement inside. I watch from the slope above the mill. I crouch low between two boulders as the herd behind me gathers slowly along the ridgeline, their groans low, soft, like breathing through cracked mouths. There are more people now, not just the woman and the two kids. I count 6 adults. One of them's tall and wide across the shoulders, former military by the way he carries himself. Another wears a firefighter's coat, sleeves cut off, body marked with soot and burn scars. They're fixing up the mill, clearing out brush, reinforcing the main wall with fresh planks. There's a radio antenna tied off to the side of the roof, lashed to a crossbeam with scrap wiring and bicycle chain. They've been here a while, maybe a week, maybe longer. The boy is here too. He's thinner, paler, but alive. His ankle is wrapped tight, and he walks with a limp. The girl is with him, always nearby. She's armed now. An actual weapon this time. A bolt-action rifle, likely taken from a raided vehicle or a looted cabin. She moves like she's ready to shoot anything that moves. I stay still for a long time, not because I'm unsure, but because I'm remembering. I remember the woman's eyes as she looked at me, not in fear, not even disgust, just recognition. She saw what I was, knew it, and didn't try to kill me. That stuck. But this place, this perimeter, these people, this is a mistake. They're doing what all the others did, building a bubble, a tiny outpost of denial, convincing themselves that hard work and barbed wire can hold back the end of the world. They believe they're different, that they're smarter, that if they keep their heads down and share their food and rotate watch every 4 hours, the dead will pass them by. They always believe that, right up until the gates collapse. I let the herd sit with me on the ridge for another day. We watch as the survivors cook their food, repair their walls, clean their weapons. They've built routines now, morning patrol, midday rest, night guard. The woman rises before the others, always walking the perimeter alone. She never hums, never smiles. But the boy does. Once, when she gives him a tin of peaches that probably came from a busted vending machine 2 valleys back. I make my decision that night. We move just after dusk. No sound, no charge, just a slow advance down the slope, the weight of dozens pressing forward through dried leaves and old sawdust. The wind shifts behind us, carrying our scent ahead. A dog tied near the old fuel shed starts barking. That's the first sign they get. The girl is the first one to respond. She fires 2 shots into the dark, warning, not aiming. The crack of the rifle echoes across the valley. A man shouts something from inside the mill. The lights come on. Flood lamps flicker against the trees. By then, it's already too late. The infected swarm from every side, over fences, through gaps, under boards they thought were solid. The guard at the front doesn't even have time to scream. He disappears under the crush of bodies. The former soldier fires round after round into the horde, but it's panic fire, no coordination. They trained for noise, not for direction. The woman grabs the boy and pulls him toward the rear exit. The girl covers them, hitting 2 infected square in the chest. It doesn't matter. They keep coming. The others fall quickly. One pulled down behind the shed, another trapped in the mess hall with no exit. The man in the firefighter coat swings a hatchet until he slips on the blood and gets dragged under. I don't watch them. I only watch her. She reaches the back fence with the boy. He's crying now, stumbling. The girl yells something, but she doesn't follow. She stays behind to block the way. Brave, but meaningless. The woman lifts the boy over the fence and pushes him down the slope. He falls, rolls, gets back up. She turns to face the horde, then she sees me, and that's when she knows how it ends. She doesn't scream. She just lifts the crossbow, but she never fires. The swarm hits her from the left, knocking her sideways into the frame of the tool shed. Her head cracks against the door. She drops out of sight. The girl vanishes under the crush seconds later. And just like that, the sawmill goes quiet. Only the boy remains. He runs into the woods, limping, gasping, falling twice before disappearing into the brush. And I don't follow him. I walk slowly through what remains. The fence is torn open in 3 places. Blood stains the gravel. One of the floodlights dangles by its wire, flickering every few seconds. The air smells like smoke and pine sap and something burnt. I step over the woman's body. She doesn't move. Her eyes are open, staring at the stars. She bled out fast. The crossbow is still clutched in her left hand, fingers locked tight. For the first time, I feel something close to stillness. I crouch beside her and tilt my head. There's no joy in this. No vengeance. Just completion. The boy will survive. Maybe for a week. Maybe longer. He'll run until he finds another fence. Another group. Another makeshift gate with a smile and a ration bag. And rules that don't matter. And I will follow.